Good evening and welcome to the September Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call this regular business meeting to order. The Board of Education maintains a webpage on www.lewispalmer.org through which members of the public can find live streaming information, meeting records, as well as the presentations and resources which will be reviewed and discussed during this meeting. Ms. Wood, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Clausen?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Ms. Upchurch?
Here.
And Mr. Taylor is absent and excused this evening.
Mr. Schwartz, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
And for our first item, B1, I would like to invite Mr. Mark Belcher up.
All right, so thanks for inviting me up here. I'm here to introduce and welcome Pastor Brian Petak with the Ascent Church. We want to both thank Pastor Brian for coming and for his efforts as well as the Ascent Church's efforts in the Run for Hope 5K, which recently put on its 6th annual Run for Hope. And as I learned recently, that was very successful this past Saturday. I know you've raised more than $100,000 for suicide prevention resources, and we just want to thank you. So, welcome.
Should I grab this quick? Thank you. I might need to lower this a little bit. Thank you to the board for this this recognition. We're with the Ascent Church. We're up just north of Lewis Palmer Middle School. It's just in between Lewis Palmer Middle and Palmer Ridge High School, and we don't do anything we do for recognition. But thank you for recognizing what's happening. What we do is, I'm going to come over here so I can look at everybody. We just want to impact our community. And so our mission statement reflects that. And now 6 years ago, we sat around a table and said, how can we most impact our community? And if you remember at that time, there were a good number of suicides happening every year, and we decided we want to impact local schools and help with that issue and the suicide prevention issue in the local schools. And so this race began, and I want to show you a number of pictures, and I'm going to actually play you a video, but this is Scott and Chantel Patterson, and I don't know if you recognize the young man in the picture that they're holding, but that's their son, Calvin. And Calvin, 2 years ago, was a junior at Lewis Palmer High School, where my kids go. I have 2 kids in Lewis Palmer High School right now, in fact. And Calvin took his life in December of 2020. And Scott and Chantel have been members of our church. And this is why we do what we do. And this was I got the phone call when Scott found out that his son took his life, and that's not the kind of phone call you ever want to receive. But I showed up right when he did to walk his family through this process of grieving, and so they came. This picture is taken on Saturday. This is at our race. They came to our race. It's called the Run for Hope 5K for schools, and we raise money for Sources of Strength suicide prevention programs in the local schools in D38 and in D20. And yes, Mark, you mentioned over $100,000. Now it's basically with the money we raised on Saturday, we're over $140,000 that we've raised in these last 5 or 6 years for Sources of Strength. So we're honored to just we support the schools, and the schools have chosen Sources of Strength. And so, we want to make sure that Sources of Strength aligns with our values, but we want to support the schools no matter what. So we're always going to continue to do that. But I wanted to show you the impact that this is making. We're coming alongside families like the Pattersons, but we also want to help with the preventative measures to provide students hope so that they don't become hopeless. And so here's the promotional video. Just wanted to give you a little perspective on what the race is all about.
The 6th annual Run for Hope 5K for Schools is coming up on Saturday, September 17th at 9 a.m. Race start and finishes in the Ascent Church parking lot on Deer Creek Road in Monument, Colorado. Run the competitive chip-timed race or join in the fun by walking or running in our Family Color Fun Run. Come join us on Saturday, September 17th with over 500 pounds of color, a kids' fun run, pancake breakfast, music, vendors, and more. In the last 5 years, the Run for Hope 5K has raised over $112,000 for suicide prevention programs in our area middle and high schools, providing hope for those who most need it. Sign up today to run, walk, or volunteer, and let's work together to make an impact on our community. Go to runforhope5kforschools.com for event details and registration.
So that was just Saturday, and we do it once a year, and you all are welcome to come and be a part of this and be a part of the solution. We know that Sources of Strength is, from what we understand, a wonderful program. We're just trusting the schools. The schools are making the decisions on what programs to use, but providing coping mechanisms for students. And we all know that there's a lot of stress and anxiety, and hopelessness abounds. And so we're honored to be able to resource a program that provides coping mechanisms. And so we're thankful that you all have taken the time. I understand that Sources of Strength was under review these last few weeks. And so it's important to review the programs that are being used. And so we're trusting you that you're making those decisions on behalf of the students. And so, I have the clicker. I was thinking somebody else might do the clicker. I'm just going to go through some of these. They're not in any particular order, but these are just pictures. These are all pictures from Saturday's race that can just scroll behind me while it's a color fun run. So you'll see a lot of color. We had over 500 pounds of color thrown on everybody that did the run walk. There's also competitive chip-timed race, and so we had podium, the first, second, and third place finishers in all the age groups, and it's just a wonderful community event. This is the kids race, so we call it Roar for Hope. So if you see some dinosaurs, it's Roar for Hope for kids, and hey, there's my son right in the center, right there, the very front center. That's my son Justin. He's an 8th grader at Lewis Palmer Middle, and I also have 2 sons at Lewis Palmer High School and 1 in college, and we love our kids, and we are, as a church, standing by you, the school district, as you equip and resource our students and provide resources like Sources of Strength. So we're just honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay here, Brian.
Pastor Pitak, if you could just join us one more time. We've got a recognition just in honor of the generous contributions from the Ascent Church to the Tri-Lakes community, including donations from the Run for Hope event to support school programming. We appreciate your care and concern for our D38 students.
The next item on our agenda is my distinct honor to talk about fellow board member Tiffany Upchurch. She was a recent recipient of the 2022 McGuffey Award. The CASB, which is the Colorado Association of School Boards, McGuffey Award honors school board members who bring committed and passionate service to their board work. The board would like to formally thank Ms. Upchurch for this outstanding recognition. And I'm going to recognize her further by reading the entire nomination as it was written. Tiffany Upchurch has faithfully served on the Lewis Palmer School District 38 Board of Education since 2017. She brings an unwavering passion, purpose, and persistence in championing the success of every student every day and relentlessly advocating for strong public schools. Tiffany is highly visible and accessible within all corners of the Tri-Lakes community, volunteering hundreds of hours as she visits schools, builds authentic relationships with diverse stakeholders, and attends multiple, and many, I would say, school and community events to support all of our students. She serves as the school board liaison to Monument Academy Charter School, in addition to the District Accountability Advisory Committee, Special Education Advisory Committee, and Preschool Advisory Committee, and continues to actively serve as the D38 CASB delegate. One of Tiffany's many strengths is her willingness and her ability to seek first, to understand the various perspectives within our community and respond with kindness, humility, and heart. She consistently leads from a place of doing what is best for all kids. Tiffany, congratulations, and on behalf of the Board of Education, we have a certificate and some flowers for you. And since you are being honored, I think it would be appropriate for you to also come around the front.
Very cool. Nice work, Tiffany.
At this time, in accordance with policy BEDH, the board will hear comments from members of the public who have signed up to speak. It is our goal as a board to continuously listen and improve, and we invite members of our community to speak publicly for a total of 30 minutes. Speakers will be allotted up to 3 minutes each, and time may be divided equally if more than 10 individuals wish to speak. We do not have more than 10 individuals. Groups with a united concern may be asked to appoint a spokesperson. The Board of Education does not expressly or individually respond to public comment. And to this point, comments expressed do not represent the position or opinion of the Board of Education or District 38. Finally, we ask that you keep comments shared appropriate for our pre-K through 12 audience and respectful at all times. Should you have an issue with a staff member that you would like addressed, please consider sharing these criticisms and concerns with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff and involving the board as necessary. So everyone will have a full 3 minutes, and our first speaker is Michael Sobers. He's a D38 parent.
Good evening. My name is Michael Sobers, and my wife Christy and I have 3 kids, all of which have been through D38. Our youngest is currently at LP Middle School, and they've all been very active in the band programs there, and so that's what we're here to speak about this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time sharing these thoughts with you all. We're here with a small group of additional parents who also want to express our support and our shared concern for the long-term health of the D38 band programs. D38 has an outstanding and award-winning band program, and it's made possible by the partnership between extraordinary band directors, actively involved parents, and administrators who all recognize the value of music education as a creative force with lifelong benefits. As proud parents of band students, we recognize the important role school music has played in our children's lives and the important role a successful band program plays in drawing additional students into D38 from surrounding districts. We also recognize that not every board member or administrator has participated in a music program and may not be familiar with how important band is to overall student education or be aware of the accolades the D38 bands have earned in recent years. Band is a collaborative performance art. It requires teamwork. It goes well beyond individual student achievement to create a high level of excellence that the D38 bands are known for. The product is much more than the sum of individual student contributions, and success is dependent on healthy and consistent membership, as well as direction from dedicated and experienced directors with long-term commitment and vision. Unfortunately, staffing challenges seem to have undercut the overall support for the band programs in the district. There seems to be a recent trend across multiple schools where scheduling or staffing changes have been recommended that would result in dire consequences for the band programs in the district. And there are several reasons why band classes can be more difficult to schedule for maximum student participation, and it can also be difficult to maintain full-time status sometimes for band directors, and as enrollment can vary from year to year. Since not every student takes band, the enrollment can change a little bit every year. But each school administration seems to take a different approach in trying to handle these challenges without realizing that sometimes there are ripple effects across the district. So as an example, the sixth grade beginning band is a critical source for producing a thriving middle school and later high school band programs. And as such, it can sometimes be difficult for elementary schools to recognize how the choices that they make about staffing and scheduling will impact the entire district for years to come, since it seems like the decisions they're making might only impact their particular school. But as parents who've benefited tremendously, as parents of children who've benefited tremendously from these band programs, starting as early as elementary school, we want to try to do everything we can to support a strong program for the future of all the D38 students. And I think some of the other folks here are going to have more to share about that, but I just wanted to thank you for your time to bring the topic up.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Medjed, also a D38 parent.
Dean Board, Dr. Summers. I don't have a video, but I will add on to some comments that Mike had. My name is Dave Meggett. My wife Liz and I have two daughters at Lewis Palmer. One's a senior at LP, and the other's a 7th grader at the middle school. Our oldest is in the Wind Symphony and also in the jazz band. Our youngest is in concert band and also plans on joining the jazz band next year as well. D38's band programs at all levels have had a tremendous impact on our children, their personal growth and development, and the parents here are here tonight to voice our support, continued support for all the band programs and their continued excellence. In response to some of the staffing and resource challenges in recent years, some schools have proposed solutions, including moving band outside of normal school hours, cutting staffing down to part-time positions, or funding through stipends instead of a full-time funded position, or even removing band from the curriculum altogether as a club or enrichment activity. These decisions would severely limit student participation opportunities and make it difficult to recruit and retain highly qualified music educators, eventually resulting in a downward spiral of reduced enrollment in later grades, a decrease in overall performance levels, and further staffing challenges trying to support fewer and fewer band students. These are examples of how band program management in each building seems somewhat disjointed and disconnected from a long-term holistic vision for a healthy future of programs. It's unclear whether school administrators understand the impact these decisions have on the overall programs, affecting not just the students at their school, but every student family in the district who benefits from a thriving band program. Each year it seems that at least one D38 school finds itself faced with these difficult decisions on how to schedule and properly staff band classes. Fortunately, we've been able to successfully advocate amongst administrators, educators, and parents to find some solutions to maintain that healthy balance across D38. But as parents, we often lack insight into the individual planning decisions in each building until it's too late to consider some alternatives that might meet better the goals of the administrators for future support of the program. To better achieve a long-term vision of excellence for the district, we propose that the board support creation of a parent-supported D38 district-wide band program advisory committee. This advisory committee would be comprised of parents, faculty, and administration in order to help consolidate and promote solutions to district-wide band challenges, staffing, and scheduling problems. The committee would also serve as a sounding board for staff and student concerns and would help establish a regular district-wide dialogue about D38 band programs and what support is needed to ensure healthy long-term sustainment and growth of the program. Thank you for your time this evening, and we respectfully ask that these statements be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting for the parents and staff who are not able to attend tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Ms. Devon Johnson, LPES principal.
Good evening. I'm Devon Johnson. I'm a community member, parent of 3 kids in D38, and I'm the principal at Lewis Palmer Elementary School. I'm speaking tonight to share my thoughts around the value of social emotional learning and programming in schools. This year, our school is focused on the path of endless possibilities. While we have end goals in mind, AKA high school graduation, we know that everyone is in a different place on this journey of learning. On this path, I believe schools must take care of the whole child, stopping to tie shoes, give snacks, and coach along the way. We need to account for wrong turns, weather, and bumps we might encounter. And despite our best efforts, sometimes we all just need a pit stop. My journey in D38 started 20 years ago with Responsive Classroom. In fact, it's why I'm the educator I am today. It's grounded in the idea that the social curriculum is just as important as the academic curriculum. It focuses on how we teach and not just what we teach. It allows students to feel a sense of belonging, teachers to be connected, and families to enter into a partnership with our schools. Responsive classrooms allow for student choice in their academics and opportunities to explore their areas of passion. This is what I want our community to be about and what I want for my kids, my 3 at home and my 400 at school. This is what kids remember about us. I just love when I run into a former student when I'm out and about, and when I do, he or she always comments on an activity we did, a song we sang, a conversation we had, or simply how they felt in my classroom. Not often do they talk about specific academic lessons. As I reflected on last week alone, I would say one of my favorite moments was our staff diving into a study of our school's academic and growth data, which was quite high, I might add. But I was equally excited by the invitation I got to attend an 8-year-old's birthday party. Just precious. LPSD has shown much success over the years, and I wholeheartedly believe this starts and continues due to programs like Responsive Classroom, capturing kids' hearts and sources of strength in our schools. I believe education is the most important field out there as it leads to kids finding their future careers down the road. I believe we first care for our students, acknowledge their strengths and growth areas, and put high expectations into place for all kids. This is what creates an environment needed for strong academic performance. Our students need programs like these, and I am advocating for them. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting our schools. And thank you for helping to pass an MLO that's desperately needed to keep quality educators able to keep our students safe, happy, engaged, and successful. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Thomas, D38 teacher.
Hello, good evening. Thank you. Chris Thomas, community member, former parent, and kindergarten teacher. I was recently at the LPPR football game handing out information on the MLO to increase teacher compensation. While I was handing out that information, I noticed the relationships between the teachers and staff who were helping at the gate and the kids and the parents and families that greeted and hugged those staff members. Then while I was thinking about these relationships, a family came in, and standing between a mom and a dad was a little boy. With a huge smile on his face, he turned to me and said, "Hi, Mrs. Thomas, I see you everywhere." Relationships. A relationship built from only 12 mornings of a summer school this past summer. Our students and teachers, bus drivers, custodians, food staff build these relationships with students over months, over school years. These relationships grow to feel like family over many years. I thought about my own son and daughter who graduated from this district. And when they graduated, they each had several teachers who stood out, who made an enormous impact on their lives over 4 years in high school, middle school, and elementary school. Sorry. These teachers were not just teachers for my kids. They were coaches, band directors, adults in their lives who made a huge impact on them. I wondered if they would have had that same experience if these teachers, coaches, and band directors had left and been replaced with multiple people over their years here in this district. I thought about that little boy who I worked with over this past summer and my kindergarten students who are just starting their years in this district. Will they have that same experience and be able to build these long relationships as my kids were able to? If we cannot offer competitive wages and salaries to our current and incoming teachers, our students will not have the same experience and build the same relationships with their teachers, coaches, if their teachers don't stay for the long term because they cannot afford to live close enough to their school or even make a livable wage. These long-term relationships and familiar faces every fall will be replaced with unfamiliar faces every year. And these long-term relationships, many of our students and families have come to rely on and expect that make our schools feel like a home away from home will no longer be there. As a community, we cannot expect our teachers to continue to be paid wages that are just above or maybe even below that poverty level. We live in a rather affluent community, and yet our teachers and staff are paid less than workers at Walmart and McDonald's. We, this community, need to invest in our teachers, which in turn will invest in our students and our families. This is an investment in our collective future. These students, our future leaders, builders, doctors, and teachers, please invest in our future, our children's futures, our district's future. Thank you.
Our next commenter is Jackie Burhans, community parent.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm a parent alumni, I like to say. My son graduated in 2017. He went to school here from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I want to talk about the impact of teacher retention and continuity, in some ways much the same as Ms. Thomas just did. My son had a great time here. He learned a lot of things. He was well supported. He had fabulous teachers. He went on to go to a great university and graduated, and is now out there in the workforce making his way just like another normal adult. I mean, it's pretty impressive to see. I'm convinced that a lot of his success in the school district comes from having teachers who were there every year, who knew him, who talked to each other about him, who conferred when they were making next year's classes. Oh yeah, I don't want that kid in my class. Oh, I'll take him. You know, and they knew who he was. They saw him coming. They knew what his strengths were and what his challenges were, and they were ready for him. For the most part, that was very smooth through elementary school. And the one time it wasn't, when somebody unexpectedly retired, we had a really tough year, as did all of the other kids in his area. And the school got it together and provided additional support and helped us get through that. But you could see the difference between working with teachers who had seen this kid since the day he came in for his first tour, when the gifted teacher said, if he comes here, I want him in my class. You know, all the way up to that one grade when it was a brand new teacher from out of district who had never taught that grade level, and, you know, poor thing, she got my kid. So it was a tough year. We got through it. The next year was great. It was just important to have those teachers who were there year after year, developing that relationship, understanding deeply what my kid was about. Same thing in middle school and same thing in high school. And in high school, it gets even more important, because there comes a point in the high school career where a kid needs to think about what they're doing next. And if what they're doing next involves shooting for a college that they really want to get into, they need a teacher to write them a recommendation. The teacher who wrote, you know, one of his recommendations is a teacher he had for 3 separate classes in high school, one of the best teachers at Palmer Ridge High School. And that teacher had him for 3 classes, also knew all of the other teachers who had had him, and really knew him deeply to write a meaningful recommendation letter that helped him get into a top university. So having teachers who stay around, who your kid can take multiple classes from, who know your kid, who talk to other teachers who also know your kid, is an incredible benefit for our students, setting them up for success. And the other type of continuity that my son benefited from was, in fact, the band program. From the 6th grade band teacher to the middle school band teacher to the high school band teacher, also the elementary choir teacher, all of the band teachers worked together in concert, supported one another, you know, at their events, at sporting events, at the musicals that were happening and so forth. So having that community of band teachers and that community of band students was so important for my kid. So I think all of that, for me, is just one of many reasons why I will be supporting the MLO. I think we need to pay our teachers fairly. I think they perform well. This is pay for performance. They've performed well. We owe them a decent salary. And I hope that this passes, and thank you for supporting it. Thanks.
Tony Davison, D38 parent.
Thank you. Let me raise this up. I'll be taller. I have a few concerns about the SEL programs being introduced in the character education. While I can agree with some of the stuff being said, I have concerns about them being put to all kids all at once, because this defines kids, all of them, as at risk. And then we are asking our teachers, who are already underpaid and self-admitted stressed, overworked, and sometimes are considered as glorified babysitters, to perform psychotherapy on a captive audience in an uncontrolled group setting with much ability to be ostracized or shamed publicly. With these programs being pushed on everyone instead of individuals, the underlying assumption is parents aren't raising our kids properly. Further, while reading some of the meta-studies on the Castle website, I found it disturbing that in their exclusions, they specifically excluded kids that did not have proper, or kids that did have bad behavior, and kids that were underperforming academically. To exclude these kids seems inappropriate to me, as they would be the most beneficial to these programs, or that's what they say in their advertisements. Further looks suggest that their main goal might be something nefarious. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, while pushing SEL in their Education 2030 framework, state, the skills, attitudes, and values that shape human behavior should be rethought to counter the discriminatory behaviors picked up at school and in the family. What they're saying is, if we don't have these programs, both the school district and parents aren't teaching kids correctly. Castle states on the website the core features of transformative SEL: academic content that integrates race, class, and culture, enhance and foregrounding social and emotional competence needed for civic engagement and social change. I would have thought academic excellence would have been included in that, but no. Prioritize students' individual and collective agency to take action. This seems they're more interested in creating political activists. A paper written in the Journal of Education Policy called Psychodata by critical theorist Ben Williams admits the purpose of SEL programs and their surveys is to harvest data to create perfectly forecastable economic conditions in people by controlling the population. And they're doing this through the schools. I'm not the only one to have noticed this, as millions of parents across the country have seen these types of programs, and they have just decided to switch to homeschooling. A white paper written in 2019 called SEL, K-12 Education as a New Age Nanny State, this is a nonpartisan paper, evaluated the programs and studies and found that there is no expert consensus on the definition of SEL, contradictory or poor quality research underlying its efficacy, mixed or negative research about the supposed benefits with respect to academic achievement, reduced suicide, infusion of SEL into Common Core, resulting in psychologically manipulative standards rather than promised, clear, rigorous academic, math, and English standards, linking of SEL to violence and suicide prevention via mental health screening, which can lead to improper diagnosis and overtreatment with potentially harmful
Mr.
medications.
Davison, I think we're at time.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot there, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our last commenter is Melissa, is it Mesk? Mesky? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I've never done anything like this before. So, I have 3 children in District 38, a freshman at Lewis Palmer, a 5th grader at Prairie Winds, and a 2nd grader at Bear Creek Elementary. My oldest also attended Monument Academy West and East campuses. I'm here today because I'm asking the district or the school board to reevaluate this leading edge program that is now providing before and after school care services in the school district. They do not provide care coverage on breaks, many holidays. They don't provide snow delays, coverages, early releases. They also have very strange billing practices that are unlike anything I've dealt with any daycare I've ever had, to where I actually had to pay for my year of care up front this fall. And so, because they consider my children that are part-time to be calendar scheduled, I have spoken with community parents and had hoped more parents would be able to attend today. There was quite a bit of following with other parents that are very unhappy, that have expressed concerns that they are allowing children, more mature or responsible children, to take the younger kids to the bathroom. I've had other parents complain that they are not accepting CCAP, whereas programs that they run in Denver, they are accepting those programs and services. They also have been told that at least at Prairie Winds, the after-school program, the children are not allowed to play on the playground because their insurance does not cover it. When trying to address these concerns with Leading Edge, no response. Literally, no response. I even got an email. Finally, once they saw the social media following, they reached out to several of us parents, in which the email I received said, "We've spoken a few times." No, we have not spoken. And so I have not received follow-up. They lack professionalism on so many different levels, including organization, to where I had to get my children's forms refilled out by the pediatrician because they sent us the wrong forms, which, as a working single parent, I do not have that ability or time in my life. When asking and speaking to the district, I got a few return calls, and finally the last call I received with the voicemail said that I needed to embrace change. This has nothing to do with change from the Y. While I very much loved the Y program and feel that they are a very strong community partner, to the point that they have added camps to cover the breaks that Leading Edge is not covering. And it's infuriating, it's very upsetting, and I wanted to start by saying my experience with this district has been phenomenal up to this point. My son has special needs. Working with the schools has been absolutely amazing at every single school we've been to. And so why the district is allowing this program to come in and provide such subpar services compared to what we were paying for and receiving is baffling. And many parents are very frustrated, very upset, and have received no response until last week that Leading Edge said they'd add some camps.
Thank you, Ms. Muskie.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is board comments. Mr. Clausen, do you have board comments this evening?
I don't have anything this evening, Ms. Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Upchurch, then we'll let you go ahead. Thank you.
I have a couple things to say. First and foremost, I'd like to extend heartfelt and brokenhearted condolences to Miss Gillen at Lewis Palmer Middle School, and extend our condolences to her family and the Lewis Palmer Middle School family. There are no words, but as the parent of one of her students, she truly connected with her students and made an impact in this world. And if I may extend a privilege just for a few moments of silence. Thank you. Thank you. I also wanted to say that while I was quite surprised by the McGuffey Award and am honored and humbled, this is a reflection of a team dedicated leaders and servants. There is no me here, there's only we. And everyone here that sits here at this table is just as deserving, and I am confident that none of us ran for this position for the accolades. We do this for selfless service and true dedication to make a difference, to serve each and every one of our students every day, to work to recruit and retain and support our amazing D38 teachers, and to ensure we are being good and wise stewards to our community. And there's a saying, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. And as I've said in the past, we each bring our own unique treasure and time and talent to this board, and we mindfully and respectfully challenge and motivate each other to reach higher and do better. And I applaud every one of our school board directors. Together, we've saved tax dollars. We found creative solutions and ways to finance much needed improvement projects, to increase pay, to refund tax dollars that were saved back to the pockets of our taxpayers, built bridges and stronger community relationships and partnerships. We did not give up during the pandemic, and we came out stronger. We sought community feedback, input, oversight, developed a good strategic plan, and advocated for our students, local control, and funding. And I am proud and honored to be a part of something bigger than me, and I'm proud and honored to be a part of this board, of this Tri-Lakes community, and of this D38 community. I'm also going to take a privilege, and I'm going to say thank you to my husband and my family for always being my inspiration and support. Thank you. And then one last note I want to say is, you'll notice on the board docs, there is the packet from the Colorado Association of School Boards resolutions that will be presented. And those resolutions, I am proud to say that our own resolution will be on the consent agenda. It was voted on in unanimous favor, and it will be in the book. It's resolution number 4. And the resolution is that the Colorado Association of School Boards urges the Colorado General Assembly to eliminate the factors used to calculate the budget stabilization factor and prioritize paying off the remaining balance by 2024. The budget stabilization factor is contrary to Colorado voters' intent in passing Amendment 23 to the Colorado Constitution. So basically the rationale is that the legislature must prioritize its legal obligation to fully fund our most precious resources, which is our students. And our other 2 resolutions will also be on the resolution packet to be voted on. And that is going to be on Saturday, October 22nd. And that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Ms. Upchurch. Mr. Schwartz.
I have 3 brief things. First one is, Tiffany, congratulations. It's well-deserved. It's a statewide award, and just like the district, you distinguished yourself amongst your peers. And as one of my kids' coaches once said, you can't teach passion, but you can model it, and you do. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Second thing is, I had the pleasure of spending some time in the elementary school this morning, in fact, most of the morning. Unfortunately, I missed my favorite subject, which was recess, but hopefully I can catch up on that one next time. It was inspiring, and I would tell you the energy in the building, it was Lewis Palmer Elementary School, was phenomenal. And we actually toured every classroom, including band and PE. One of the highlights was a math game that the kids played called Quiz Quiz Trade. The academic piece of this game was very simple: times tables and memorization. And I don't know about most of you, but I remember sitting at a desk with a big grid with hundreds of times tables there, and you just had to keep chipping away and memorizing them. That doesn't happen 2 generations later. These kids are up, they're active, they engage, they interact, they ask each other questions, and they happen to memorize their times tables while they're learning to be polite, address each other, look each other in the eye, be respectful, and interact with each other, not just their best friends. And that's why the district does so well, because we don't take the academics for granted, but we take them to a different level. So kudos to all elementary schools and to your team for earning the accolades that you're getting at the state level. So really, really exciting. Second thing is just a friendly reminder. So 8 days ago was the 21st anniversary of one of the most poignant days in our history, 9/11. And on that day, we lost 3,000 people in a very short window of time. In the pursuant 21 years, we've lost another 7,000 fighting the global war on terror. None of the kids in our school system today were alive during that event. So it's up to us just to make sure that they understand it, they understand how and why it happened, and what we can do to prevent it. And since it hasn't made its way into the curriculum yet, I want to make sure that we all at least acknowledge what's happened. We all say the Pledge of Allegiance. This is our chance to actually live it. Thank you.
Thank you both. And thank you, Mr. Schwartz, for mentioning 9/11. I think it is a very important point that none of our children, K through 12, lived through that day and the following months and years. I think my only comment is just having been in some school functions, a lot of community functions as the year begins, there is such a strong sense of community in our area. And it's apparent everywhere, from Ascent Church holding a 5K run for suicide prevention based on events that have happened over quite a long period of time, to the LPPR football game, which all I could think about while I was there was 2 years ago and how far we have come to being back in person and just the joy on everybody's faces. It still feels new and different to be in a crowd, but it's much, much safer now. So, and then all the full sports and music that's beginning, the concerts, the auditions for theater, all the academic clubs, the robotics club, everything is up and running, and it feels really, really good. But yet the one hesitancy still is that feeling of how do we best support our school system and how do we best support our teachers? And this board is presenting a question on the November ballot, and it's up to our community to ultimately make the decision. But we have spent the last 15, if not 18 months learning all we can, trusting the expertise of your team, Dr. Summers. They have responded to many, many questions that this board has had. They've come back with data. We have collaborated with our community, and we have listened personally and as a board to many, many, many conversations over months. And we are presenting what we, as a board, think is a very solid solution. But it's up to the community to vote. So I'm just encouraging everybody to get informed. If you are already informed, please share your information with others, and please vote in November. Thank you. Oh, pardon me. We are now at the superintendent's update. Dr. Summers.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Thank you to all of our board. Your continuous service and sacrifice and countless hours and selflessness and stewardship. It's just a pleasure to continue to work alongside you. And we also appreciate the public comment that was brought forth this evening here. Just as a reminder, we don't necessarily respond directly right on the spot, but please know that we're taking all of this into consideration and we'll provide appropriate follow-up in the very near future. This update is full of some recognition and appreciation, starting with our first kudos that we've received over the course of the year. So you see several names that have been formally recognized through our staff kudos submission process. And we just, I would echo many of the comments that were just made in the fact that this has been an outstanding start to the school year. We're seeing just so many smiles and engaging interactions, the opportunities that our students have demonstrated, as well as how our staff are showing up. It's just really inspiring to be in a position where you can bear witness to that and celebrate that and continue to acknowledge all of the hard work and dedication that's going forth. So again, we encourage you to submit those kudos nominations along the way, and if you have a chance to, please thank a staff member for their service as we continue to move forward. So we were very privileged to be able to have a special visit to Lewis Palmer Middle School last week. The best-selling author for Finding Gobi, which is a New York Times bestseller, his name is Dion Leonard, visited Lewis Palmer Middle School last Thursday and Friday, and all of our students got a chance to see and interact with Gobi, a resilient Chihuahua mix. So you see one of the pictures that was taken. This has been an all-school reads program that Lewis Palmer Middle School has started the school year off with, and it's been really neat to see how the students, the staff, and the community are coming around. Just an incredible story of Finding Gobi. So we've had several staff members that have had the chance to read different chapters of the text and to engage in this school-wide book study. So very excited about that opportunity. Our Palmer Ridge High School journalistic success is celebrated here. So there was a recent Colorado Student Media Association Journalism Day where students had the opportunity to learn from a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. And we just wanted to give a shout out to the 2022 Epilogue Edition, which was recognized as an all Colorado yearbook, as well as the Bare Truth earning an Award of Merit. And the National Scholastic Press Association also awarded the 2022 Epilogue with a first-class rating. So just outstanding work that went into all of that production, and very proud of the students for all of their efforts and their leadership in the process. So we had the privilege to welcome a renowned guest speaker back on Friday, September 2nd. This was coinciding with a district-wide professional learning day. And Dr. Tina Bogren came and spoke to all of our staff on the important topic of educator wellness. And then we had several different work sessions that culminated throughout the day. And I think just summarizing what the essence of all of this was, of course, she was very engaging, very humorous. She has several books, and we were able to be part of the purchase of one of those, which is 180 days of having self-care as a focus for our educators. One of the things that we have to remember is that in order to take good care of our kids, we have to take good care of ourselves and each other. So just wanted to shout that out, and special shout out to Amber Wetstein for helping make this event possible. So I think, as you also mentioned, Ms. Phillips, we had the LPPR game. This was a couple weeks ago, and we had packed bleachers and really nice fall football weather. And really, besides the actual competition on the field, it's just an incredible community-wide event that showcases all of our kids, not just on the field, but off the field. In fact, I think the crowd is kind of what steals your attention. But it's great to see everybody come out. And the General Palmer Trophy does go to Palmer Ridge this year. But of course, it's not just football. So there'll be volleyball, there'll be all sorts of other sports that are going to highlight this rivalry as we go forward. So we're very excited to see how our student athletes perform, and again, just welcome all of our community into a real exciting event. Very excited to share with you that we do have several National Merit Scholarship semifinalists. So hopefully I get all their names correct in pronunciation here, but Tristan Clark, Elise Flynn, Alex Weeks were all selected from Lewis Palmer High School, and Lawson McVeigh, Nathaniel Sapp, Lainey Satterley, Grace Weitzel, and Cole Wicker were selected from Palmer Ridge High School. So big kudos to these individuals. This is for scoring extremely high on the National Merit Qualifying Exam, which was taken last fall. So kudos to them, and there's a process that they will engage in to be determined on whether or not they're finalists, but semifinalists is an extraordinary accomplishment, and very proud of their academic success. So you will see a new newspaper that will be arriving in the homes of all of our District 38 residents. This will be the D38 Dispatch. So this is a print newspaper. And big kudos to Mark Belcher, who has been coordinating very closely with partnership with the Colorado Springs Military Newspaper Group, and is being basically funded completely by the advertising efforts that are built into this newspaper publication. And I want to say in the next week or so, Mark, does that sound right? Should be going out here in the next 7 to 14 days. So very excited to see that launch. So just a preview for some presentations that we have this evening. We will be sharing with you the character education review that has taken place, and providing a framework and the opportunity for our community both to understand as well as weigh in on these resources that are currently provided within our schools. We are also very excited to share with you our academic achievement and growth through the lens of the most recent district and school performance frameworks that were just recently received from the Colorado Department of Education. So the board will be reviewing and ultimately approving school accreditation results as of this evening. And there's a lot of celebration and success to share there. So we're very excited about that. And then we do have a proposal for how we'll continue with Engage and Elevate sessions as we're working into the fall and the rest of the school year. And just a reminder of some upcoming or current work that's also taking place. We had the opportunity at our last work session to share additional academic achievement and growth data. So that continues to frame our reflections and review of where we've been, as well as set goals and targets for how we're moving forward into this school year. We have been soliciting quite a bit of input from a variety of our staff in terms of our core values, identification, and operationalization. And while we're not going into detail on that this evening, we're excited to share with you in the future the results that we've heard and how those values align with our strategic plan and our efforts forward. In addition to how we're continuing to leverage our strategic plan and some next steps. So that includes work in the area of Portrait of a Graduate, which we're calling Phase 2 at this point. So we have a series of community meetings which will be coming up that will invite our families, business owners, community members, whoever has an interest in helping shape that work. And as we are engaged in that process, we're also going to be talking about the portrait of an educator and how the two areas of focus combine to form a very focused and future vision system that is prioritizing each and every one of our kiddos, as well as our staff members. That work will also be in alignment with continued development of our key performance indicators, as well as another topic that was shared at our last work session is the refreshed look at our long-range planning committee, which will include updates on growth projections, facilities condition index, as well as revisiting our potential plans for Grace Best. So lots of work that's going to be shaped in that effort. And then all of this continues to be our commitment to strengthening our D38 governance team. And with that, I'm just going to pause. I do have a couple more slides, but I'm going to ask to see if there's any questions about what we've already covered, and then I think, are going to slide into the next agenda topic.
Mr. Clausen, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you.
Ms. Upchurch or Mr. Schwartz?
I actually don't.
Okay. So with that, we're going to invite Chief Business Officer Brett Ridgway up. And along with Dr. Summers, we're moving into C1, agenda item C1.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. So bringing Brett up to help introduce to you, we're very excited to share that we have been very fortunate in our hiring efforts for a new Human Resources Director. So with that, Mr. Ridgway.
Thank you.
Not yet.
We'll get you a mic that works.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, since we last met in August, we had a sudden transition in leadership of human resources, and that is always an important role, but particularly at this time of year, as we're beginning a new school year and we're onboarding lots of staff. So we moved quickly to post that position, and we were fortunate to receive a good candidate pool. So we were able to move quickly then into interviews and through that process to select a candidate, and want to introduce to you Misty Manchester, who is actually here this evening, and as our new director of human resources.
Come on up,
and
Misty.
have a seat.
Yeah, come on up.
Really pleased, really fortunate to be able to welcome Misty onto the team here. And you can see just the brief, kind of bullet point bio of her time and in the profession, in education, and both human resources. You can see particularly there her leadership, that she's also participating in the CASE group, and so just a great opportunity for us to pivot quickly to some new leadership and some new skill sets in the human resources area. And the reason I'm talking about this is we're gonna reorganize just a little bit here, and really intentionally bring human resources and finance together and make sure that they are collaborating well. And so the team structure that we have in here right now reflects that, so that the chief business officer and myself would supervise both functions, human resources and finance. Of course, there's still a lot of interaction laterally throughout the organization, so this does not represent any type of limitation on communication, but it should represent some real intentional collaboration between these two functions to make sure that we can diagnose things that have not worked great. Like we did have some trouble in our payroll last month, and that was unfortunate, and we've been working a lot in triaging that and correcting that as we move forward. But even strategically moving forward, as we talk about pay schedules and budgeting and staffing and things like that, these functions need to really function very closely, very cohesively. So that's kind of the path forward for us. Anything you'd like to say, Misty?
Thank you. Just thank you for the opportunity. I'm very excited to join the team here. We had a great conversation, a couple of great conversations with Brett, and I'm honored to be able to serve the district here. Excited about the things that are going on. It's been great to hear from community members and from some of our staff, and excited about the potential voter measure that's going forward before the voters. As an HR director, I feel very strongly about the need to pay our staff a living wage and to have competitive salaries so that we can compete for the best candidates out there. So I'm just excited to be a part of the great work that's going on here, and I'm very excited to be part of the team. So thank you. Thanks for that opportunity.
Welcome aboard.
Ms. Manchester, on behalf of the board, welcome.
Thank you.
And you are among a team of very high-performing individuals and professionals, and so we would imagine that since you're here, you are also one of them as well. And so we welcome you, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Misty. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you both. Let's see, we're moving on to agenda item C2. Ms. Wetstein. Oh, she's on her way. She's going to provide an overview of district-level academic achievement and growth data from the 2021 to 2022 school year.
Good evening. It is certainly an honor to have the privilege to present this information to you this evening. We'll be talking about the school accreditation process, and this is a follow-up to the information that I provided during the work session on our state assessment results. It's been some time since we have implemented this process. It actually was paused since 2019 due to COVID. And so I'll spend some time providing an overview of how to read the district and school performance framework reports that are in the board packet, as it has been some time since the board and the community have seen those reports. As we've been mentioning this evening, District 38 as a district has been accredited with distinction, and we are one of 11 of 184 school districts to earn this distinction, which is 6% of Colorado. For clarity, the district is accredited by the State Board of Education, and the board accredits each of its charter schools and operated schools. So we'll be asking you to take a vote this evening to accredit each of our schools according to the plan types that are in the documents provided. We are one of 4 districts that have continued to earn this distinction since the inception of the Colorado School Accountability System that we're currently a part of. District 38 increased its overall performance since 2019, which was our most recent results pre-pandemic, and outperformed all districts within the region with the exception of Cheyenne Mountain. And I can show you here a visual of how we perform. These are the same districts that we have been comparing ourselves to as far as compensation. And you can see that while many of our neighboring districts actually lost ground since 2019, we gained in our performance, and we, again, performed better than all districts with the exception of Cheyenne Mountain. Let me pause there for a moment and see if there might be questions or comments.
Can you describe what distinction means to a non-educator?
Good question.
We are performing within the top 6% of all districts across Colorado. And so it is quite an honor when we look back at only 6% of districts received this distinction. And these reports that I will preview with you are all academic reports, so we'll be looking at how we perform academically, as well as how we are preparing students for post-secondary workforce readiness. And I do want to just take a moment and recognize the board for the investment that they have made in resources to support our students. So when we look at our performance increasing over the past 3 years, not only did we survive during the pandemic, but we thrived, and we thank you for the resources that you have committed to the district, including the recent literacy curriculum adoption. I'm going to go on. So a brief tutorial on how to read and interpret these reports. I've taken a snapshot of the elementary, middle, and high school results for you, but you can see the reports in their entirety in board docs. You will notice that at the elementary level, we received ratings on English, language arts, and math, and this first graphic is how our students achieved. And I like to reference the percentile rank column, where you will notice that this group of students, which was all elementary students who tested this past spring, performed overall at the 87th percentile, which was exceeding state expectations, and the 85th percentile for math. You'll also see a breakdown of special student populations, and it's important to note that these percentile ranks are how our students performed against the general population. So when we're looking at English learners, for example, they performed at the 47th percentile as compared to all students in Colorado, not other English learners. Okay, we do look at the data that shows how our students perform with like groups, and overall, we are typically at generally at the 90th percentile when we're looking at in-group achievement.
You mentioned the state expectation. How is that developed? Or how is that
It is a
determined?
complex formula, and on the reports in your packet, there is a rubric, if you will, that shows how many points you have to earn for each of these categories to get to the overall ratings. So I know a 50, I don't have them memorized off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to talk more about those. But there is a chart at the last page of these documents that shows what number you need to get to score, if you will, in the meets or exceeds categories.
So is it like a weighted algorithm?
Maybe. It's a complex formula that was developed back in 2009 and has evolved slightly since then and continues to evolve. And I'll point out an area that is new on these reports this year. Okay, so this is looking at elementary growth. And in this case, we shared these results with you at the work session. We are aiming for a median growth percentile of 50. And these results are based on how students who have a history of a specific achievement level grow year to year based on students with similar achievement patterns. So that's as simple as I can make a complex formula sound. But overall, we want our students growing on average and up to par with their peers that have similar achievement patterns. And that would be represented by a median growth percentile of 50. Okay. Middle school, again, I'll point out our percentile rank. This is achievement. We are at the 86th percentile overall for middle school students in English language arts and the 85th in math. And again, with a median growth percentile expectation of 50, we are just short of meeting that expectation on this framework. And I should point out all of these results include both district operated and charter school results. You'll be able to look at the breakdown by school by looking at each of those individual school reports. At the high school level, our students performed at the 89th percentile on the PSAT, evidence-based reading and writing, and at the 84th percentile in math. And also performed above the 50th percentile for growth.
Is some of that related to participation rate, or could it be?
Potentially, yeah. It's really hard for us to dissect that, but potentially, yes. We would have to know, which students opted out and what their previous achievement and growth looked like, and there are a lot of variables to keep in mind with this year's results.
Thank you.
It kind of outlines an explanation of that under each of the, if I read it right, under each schools, the last page kind of explains that.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see the count. So anywhere where it says count, that was the number of students whose scores impacted this data. Also at the high school level, we are measured on post-secondary workforce readiness. We don't get a percentile rank for SAT, but they do look at how our students are performing as a mean score, and Dr. Baum shared that information with you, that we're performing well above other districts on the SAT at our work session. We are also measured on dropout rate and graduation rate, which we perform very well on. I do want to point out the matriculation rate. We added military enlistment this year, and we are working to ensure that we are accurately collecting the intent to enlist as well as students going to service academies so that we can represent that number accurately. We're not confident across Colorado and my peers in Pikes Peak, in the Pikes Peak region, that our current numbers are reflected accurately. But you will notice that we have 67.4% of our students who are matriculating the year immediately after graduation to either a two-year or four-year college program, or have earned a workforce certificate prior to graduating from high school, or have enlisted in the military. Questions about that information?
Where's that matriculation rate versus the state average?
I would need to take, I believe that is on the rubric. I would need to take a look at that and get that to you on the last page of these reports. If
I can speak to it. So anything at or above the 75.8% mark for matriculation is an exceeding score. Anything at or above 61.1% but below 75.8% is meeting. So I believe the way the state designates meets or exceeds is based on at the 50 percentile mark. You're probably looking at the majority of districts that are at least meeting that benchmark. So that 61 to 75% range.
Thank you.
And there has been quite a discussion regionally that these scores may be impacted by the pandemic. We know that many students are deferring their college experience, or did in the past couple of years, and so that potentially could impact this as well.
I couldn't find prior to the pandemic I couldn't remember when we were presented with these the last time at our last board meeting.
2019.
And I was trying to find the month because I wanted to see something that's always interesting to me. For those that don't know, this is used for our universal improvement plans, right?
Yes, it's a piece of information that we use. However, the majority of our schools, all of our operated schools, have much flexibility in those plans and no requirements because of the high performance of our schools. And so we're really taking the liberty to use those unified improvement plans to better align with our strategic plan priorities. So yes, while we're referencing these reports, we're really encouraging schools to look deeper at other types of data to hone in on meeting the individual needs of students, and also to look more broadly at priorities 1 and 3, and not just this report.
I was going to go down a lane and you went straight to the end, finish the road. Because something I noticed on here too that I thought was pretty neat, the district performance framework for students with disabilities in CMAS in math and in CMAS with language arts, that's on page 5, that we meet and exceed. And we always see students with disabilities on our UIP plans. So to me, that's really encouraging that we really are, when we write those plans, we put them into action and we try to make sure that we are indeed meeting our kids right where they are.
Yeah, I would say while this is the state's accountability system that had a lot of input from many stakeholders with special interests when it was developed, when we look at the performance and growth of our students in these groups compared to their similar peers, we have outstanding performance, typically at the 90th percentile or above. And
then one other quick thing. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you yet. on each individual school, when Teresa, when you were asking, and I want to clarify, where it says total possible points by performance indicator, is that the formula that is used by the state? Just grab one of them, like Bear Creek is the first one I grabbed and went to the bottom and saw the the very, very bottom. It would be the next.
Yeah, I don't think I have the.
Okay.
Well, maybe I can pull the bear.
It's fine. What I was looking at because Teresa, that was a great question, and I was curious if that's information is laid out right in that page.
Okay, so when we're looking at the total points, it's a calculation that was developed for school accountability purposes, with the total points available being 100.
And then if you go all the way down to the bottom, just scroll on by. Okay, so go up one.
So this is where
right
you can
there.
look at
Yeah.
you can look at how these points are calculated. So when you look at academic achievement, when the school overall is performing at the 85th percentile or above, then that would be earning and exceeds. When we look at academic growth, it would be a median growth percentile of 65 or higher. And so you can kind of see the breakdown of how those points work, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I will mention that we are in the process at the state level of an audit of this system. It's been, I want to say, about a year in process, and we do expect that there'll be a report this fall regarding the findings of the audit, and it was to look at the efficacy of this system and how it's serving our students and community. So when we have information to share, we'll be happy to provide you an update on that as well.
Ms. Wetstein, if you go to the district front page, I don't know if that's something you can pull up real quick, but I just wanted to revisit Mr. Schwartz's initial question. So where you see the bar, and I think one of the deceiving things is because this is a 100-point scale, some people quickly translate it to, oh, it's like a letter grade, like how many points out of 100? It's not. That's just a way that the state has designed this framework. But you see the accreditation with distinction rating starts at 74% all the way up to 100%. The next category, which is the technically sort of the most broad category of performance, is accredited. That requires 56% of points all the way up to 73.9, and then so forth. So you have several districts that are accredited, several that are also accredited with an improvement plan, not as many that are on a priority improvement. It's really not good if you're in a turnaround plan. However, to Ms. Wetstein's point, this system, there's a lot of philosophical debate about the merits of it. What we try to look at without getting so caught up in that argument is it is a measure of how our students are performing at the given point in time when they are taking our statewide assessments. So yes, there are a lot of variables that go into that. Yes, we were in a transition year, so growth measures are sometimes difficult given what the data was over 2019, obviously not having tests in 2020, and then just this most recent year, or most recent 2 years of testing. There are a lot of variables that go into all of this, but at face value, it is still a very tremendous statement of impact, because to see our students through the pandemic achieving at a high level, and in many cases even at a higher level than where we were before, just speaks volumes for our teachers and our staff and the hard work that's going into all of that, as well as a testament to our kids and our families. So I think it is definitely worthy of commendation and celebration.
Question on the detail. Were all the facilities in the district included in this?
Yes.
Including Monument Academy?
Including Monument Academy, yes.
Great, good. So It's a good swath of everything that's happening in the community education-wise.
It is.
Mr. Clausen, do you have any further questions?
I don't.
Thank you, Ms. Wetstein. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the accreditation of all district-operated and charter schools as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
And since Ms. Wetstein is still here, we will go on to item C3 to consider and approve character education resource adoption.
Thank you. This presentation is a follow-up to the presentation in August where we reviewed our current character education resources that are utilized throughout the district. Our intent is to respond to the board's priority of providing a safe, healthy, and welcoming schools. And this presentation is directly in response to a change the board made to the character education policy this past spring in ensuring that our stakeholders have an opportunity for input when we're considering the resources that we use in this realm. And we also added language that the board shall have final approval of all character education resources. The programs that we are asking you to consider this evening include Responsive Classroom and Capturing Kids' Hearts, as well as Sources of Strength. And I will provide context that when we provided an opportunity for the community to review these resources, it was quite a bit different than when we invite them to look at curriculum. While these are resources, we don't consider them curriculum. They are primarily teacher training resources, and that is what we shared on display with the community. And so it should be of note that these resources are mostly teacher-facing resources, different from a textbook adoption that would be something that a student would be accessing individually. I will also note that these are resources and training that our teachers have participated in for many years. We most recently this May invested in several days of training for Responsive Classroom with our elementary staff and also trained all new secondary teachers in Capturing Kids' Hearts. Our actions since our last board meeting have been providing that opportunity for community review. We had those materials on display from August 23rd through September 9th, and you have in your board packet all of the community members who came to view those materials as well as the comments submitted. Tonight, we're asking you to review and approve these resources, and if approved, we will continue to provide onboarding and training with these resources for our teachers to ensure that they are fully equipped to make decisions about what is most appropriate for our students and our community values. And that has already been done with new teachers in an informal way through new teacher orientation, but we do plan to have more formal training later in the school year. We are in the process of reviewing the resources that our elementary counseling staff uses, and if we have a proposal for something other than what is presented this evening, then we'll bring those to you for review as well. And any future resources that may be proposed, we will continue to comply with board policy and bring those forward. Here were some themes that we noticed in the feedback that we received. Some themes of support included folks feeling like these were good programs for students. They help create a welcoming environment, and they provide a framework for classroom management and best practice instructional strategies. Some of what you talked about, Mr. Schwartz, seeing at Lewis Palmer Elementary School by engaging students in games for academic purposes is very much what we train teachers to do as part of the responsive classroom program. Some concerns. Some community members asked, could this be taking away from the time spent on academics? Are all the exercises or activities necessary, or could they be screened and tailored to meet our community values? And are we reviewing the activities for appropriateness? So what character education is and how we are presenting it to you for approval, we want to create a welcoming environment for students. We want to emphasize positive relationships among teachers, students, and families. We want to develop classroom management structures. We want to provide a safe school environment for students. And we want to support the board's character education policy, which requires us to teach these character traits of honesty, respect, responsibility, courtesy, respect for compliance with the law, integrity, respect for parents, home, and community, dignity and dignity and the necessity of strong work ethic, and conflict resolution skills. What it is not and what we do not intend to do with these resources is to replace family values, to provide psychological assessment or treatment by teachers, to administer medical treatment to students without parent request, or to present controversial or inappropriate topics. And I'll open it for discussion.
Can you just clarify, and I might have missed it in the last couple conversations, under actions, is the board, how often will the board approve
Our
character
intent is
education
if
resources?
we are proposing a new resource, that we would bring it to you at that time. We heard Ms. Johnson speak this evening. Responsive Classroom has been used in the district for 20-some years. And so we don't intend to make this a cyclical process. However, the community is always welcome at any time. Parents are invited to come if they have a question or concern about any of the resources we use. They would always be available for review. I will also mention that as with any concerns that a parent may have about a topic being taught in the school, we would always encourage them to come to the school principal to have that conversation so that we can accommodate any concerns a family may have.
Okay, and just for clarity for everyone, including myself, where it says through spring 2023, that doesn't mean that anything's changing after this next year.
Correct.
Okay.
We're actually just taking a look at what are the resources that the elementary school counselors are currently using, and that is primarily used when students have a need, maybe they're experiencing grief or struggling with friendships, and there are resources that school counselors use to help students through some of those processes. Responsive Classroom is one of those resources that they currently use, but if there is anything different that we would want to formalize, we would bring that to you and the community for review this spring.
So tonight we are catching up processes with board policy.
Correct.
To piggyback off of that, so I remember, Responsive Classroom has been around since, my kid was 23 years old, and it was things like everything from a high five and a fist bump to knowing if a student is having a bad day and being able to communicate that with parents. And the way I understand this, we're not replacing anything. We are simply reviewing what we already have in place. Okay. And a thought on that, and now I lost my train of thought. And capturing kids' hearts is the same. It's been around for how long?
For some time. I know many districts across the region have used it for many years, and I can find that out for you, but my best guess would be 10 years. But that is
The
a
most
guess.
recent training, however, that was facilitated for all of our staff at both of our high schools occurred in 2020, at least the beginning of that school year. And that was our COVID year as well. Prior to that, I can tell you CKH has been in place at some of our campuses, not all, dating back to several years, to Ms. Wetstein's point. So it again, not a new resource per se.
And Sources of Strength has been around for a while as well. And my own testimony as my own student, which I've shared with many times before, with how Sources of Strength, I'm just going to call out the elephant in the room. That training and that recognition that an educator took the time to get to know my student on an individual level for who he is and where he is. And so that teacher was able to recognize what was going through his life. And there was no intrusion in our family values. In fact, us as a family were included in the dialogue. And we were able to work together. And I would say I have a 23-year-old son now because of that. And it's actually one of the reasons I ran for this school board, because I wanted to give back to the school district that took care of my family and my kids. With that said, I think that when I read the concerns, I can see and understand some of the concerns may be valid. There's a concern of, is it going to be a slippery slope? But so far, we haven't seen that in our school district. We do respect our family values, and I think that the concerns we should be listening to, and I think those individuals should also, anytime a parent, whether it's me or anyone else, has a question or concern, that we have that ability to collaborate with our teachers and with our schools and include our students in that conversation, that dialogue, to ensure that, we heard today the testimony of how many, and I guarantee you everyone in this room can remember a teacher that made a difference in their lives. And the teachers that made a difference in my life, I don't remember, did I learn about To Kill a Mockingbird that day? No. I remember how that teacher taught me and how that teacher related to me and motivated me and pushed me to graduate and be better than I am today. So I think that the accolades that we saw written and the concerns that we saw written, I don't think have to be mutually exclusive. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I would add that there's no replacement for the partnership and good conversation dialogue. Anytime there's a question, there's some type of concern that may arise. I think one of the things that this programming, and we're being intentional about not referring to this as a curriculum per se, because what that sometimes implies is that we are just delivering the curriculum exactly how it's written or exactly how it might appear in a text version. What we're actually doing is using it as a baseline and as just a good, solid, systemic framework for how we focus on relationship building, how we focus on a community or a classroom of how all of our learners, and that includes our kids as well as our adults, are working in unison to achieve ultimately what the goals are for what we want in terms of this educational process, which obviously prioritizes academics, but also prioritizes just good, solid health and wellness and an attitude of feeling good about being at school and feeling good about the people that you're around. And when there may be conflict, when there may be disagreement, that there is a framework and a process for how we manage through that. There is quite a bit in terms of how we're proactive in the way that we're supporting positive behaviors, but naturally in a school environment, there's going to be times when there's potentially inappropriate behavior. So this is a good, solid system that enables us to really filter through to support a pro-social and a positive approach to how we're working with all of our kiddos, knowing that some of them have some pretty unique
dynamics or challenges that maybe they're having to work through. So this is not meant to necessarily just manage the behavior. It's really meant to be part of the robust programming that really enables each of our kids to be successful. And when additional support is needed, again, there's an opportunity to work collaboratively with our families, as well as the individual student involved, and to develop really good plans to help them, again, pursue those goals. So, I mean, there's just a lot of common sense kinds of things that play into this. And where there are concerns, again, we're more than happy to sit down and talk through what those are and how those might be influencing or affecting an individual child.
I think I want to make sure everybody else where it speaks to, but I think the important thing too is that when I ran for the board, one of the things I heard from a lot of folks is what kind of character education do we have? And I think there's a concern of what's that slippery slope of character education, where we're just learning how to what the rules of the classroom are, and that a teacher can be nurturing with their students while they're teaching, and that they can be responsive to who the student is and reach and teach every student every day right where they are. And at the same time, making sure that we're not going into a slippery slope. And, you know, some parents brought up some good points in here on, is this really an appropriate way to move if you have blue or eat pizza this week or wear underwear? Okay, well, that's inappropriate, but is that really, I would assume a student would go home to their mom and dad and be like, all right, guess what? So I feel like this is character education, and that it's important that we are making sure that we're taking care of our kids. And I understand people are afraid, or we don't want to indoctrinate our students. And I didn't see this when I reviewed it also, and I've been a parent in this district with all three, and I've never seen this be an indoctrination tool, personally. So
And
I just want to...
I think that concern that you pointed out is a great example of where we would expect our teachers, and through the training we provide them, to adapt the resources to meet the needs of our community, our values, and our students. And so it is not a page-by-page manual on how to carry out these programs, but more of a resource in how you can, again, bring joy and management to the classroom environment.
And again, we would be approving resources that, as you said, are teacher-facing.
Correct.
So teacher-facing plus the expertise of you and your team and all of the professionals in the schools.
I would add, and we've just got phenomenal teachers at all of our schools, as well as teachers who are still very new to the profession, and sometimes teachers who are still learning what types of strategies and what types of approaches work best for the students that are within their classrooms. And to expect our teachers to do one more thing of figuring out exactly the best way to do all of that in an environment where we know that research tells us that good systemic school-wide practice actually helps create a culture and a climate where those expectations are known not just in one classroom at a time, but really across the entire spectrum. And to be able to have the types of opportunities to train our teachers with really good resources just aids in a level of confidence that we're not just making this up on the fly, as well as it gives us an opportunity to share and collaborate with each other on those best practices. So it's truly masterful when you see teachers, regardless of how many years of experience they have, to be able to take what's best, implement it, learn from it, we reflect upon it. This is a very dynamic and active process that we're engaged in. So I think it speaks to what a good, robust educational system can provide to make sure that not only are teachers having the right resources, but that our kids are experiencing this consistently in a manner that's supportive of each and every one of them. I think that's the other thing I would just stress on the slide, is that this is about all kids, not a few over here or a few over here. That we really want to make this inclusive, welcoming for all, and that feeling of my teacher cares about me, they know me, I belong here, I mean, that is fundamental to every student feeling good about where they're showing up every day. And that, to me, is more than just a program, right? That's just what we're all about. And we have really good resources to be able to back that up.
And as I understand it, it's fundamental to all of the academic learning that occurs.
Absolutely. I don't think we would be experiencing the academic results that we are if our teachers didn't have amazing relationships with students. And these resources help us just continue to enhance those relationships and experiences.
Mr. Clausen, I want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to ask or comment.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Sure. Then I'd like to make a motion to adopt the following character education resources: responsive classroom, capturing kids' hearts, and sources of strength for use district-wide at the appropriate grade levels.
Can I amend that to say re-adopt? Or,
Well, we've never formally adopted it.
Okay.
We haven't had the board policy in place.
okay, I see.
Second.
Ms. Wood, or comments? Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Wetstein. And we'll move on to agenda item C4, community engagement, Mr. Belcher. Oh, he's already here. To speak about engage and elevate sessions for the 2022-2023 school year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me up here.
Welcome back.
Promise this will be the last time you hear my voice tonight.
Careful.
I was just going to say, that'll be fun if we can
Somehow
put that to the test.
We could amend the agenda.
Oh, I wouldn't put it past you. Okay, so we're going to chat a little bit here about Engage and Elevate. If you remember from last year, that was our opportunity to go out and seek feedback from our community, speak on a variety of topics, including our strategic plan, but really let the community speak to us. This is a picture from our final, I believe it was our final session at Palmer Ridge. It was one of our more well-attended sessions. I'd love to recap just a couple themes, as I think they demonstrate some of the value of these types of efforts. I think you'll find in each theme they are still of relevance right now, and they were talked about more than a year ago. So each group that met certainly touched on staff compensation. There's a consensus that staff should be paid more and the working environment should be improved. It's kind of a twofold thing. And obviously, we're in the middle of a ballot initiative, so that's clearly still of relevance. We also had many community members who wanted to learn more about character education, and clearly, we just passed the first review of our character education program, so that's great. And then finally, we had quite a bit of feedback on our Portrait of the Graduate project, including support for potential additional projects, including Portrait of an Educator, Portrait of a D38 Leader, and potentially a Portrait of a D38 Community. So moving into 2022, we think it's important to reactivate the Engage and Elevate program, and we have a little proposal for you. So with a ballot issue called, as I just mentioned, the Board of Education has an opportunity to engage in that same deep listening that we did last year, especially at a time when many in the community may have questions for their elected officials. So we proposed 3 immediate Board of Education-led sessions prior to the November election, with regular sessions to follow on a monthly basis. Like last year, we'll use a number of advertising means, including our new D38 Dispatch newspaper, for sessions that follow the election. And we have a schedule mapped out for you here, and we would really hope to get 2 members of the Board of Education at each of these first few Engage and Elevate sessions. So our first proposed date is September 28th. We would propose that at Palmer Ridge High School from 6 to 7. We also have October 11th or 13th, and the 11th would precede DAC, and the 13th would precede the LPPR volleyball game. So that would either happen at LPMS or LPHS. And we can modify that based on if the board has availability. And then finally, for this immediate 3, we have October 25th. That would be proposed at Prairie Winds at 5:30. And we hope that this gives a variety of locations as well as a variety of times for our community members. And then beyond that, we would advocate for at least one per month starting in November. We would propose reviewing a schedule with you all on October 4th at our work session, and then we would publish a schedule on or before our October 18th Board of Education meeting. What questions can I answer?
Besides the dispatch, what other ideas do you have for letting the community know?
Sure.
Especially the community that's not necessarily tied in directly, either doesn't have a student or an employee of the district.
Sure. So last year we did a couple methods. We sent print ads out in our various newspapers, and we could certainly explore that yet again. We posted on our social media channels, and we put paid ad dollars behind them to make sure people who weren't necessarily following or engaging with D38 would see them. And then we also have a pretty robust email list that we're using right now, about 30,000 people, and we would certainly push this opportunity as well as some others that are coming around the corner to that email list.
And then a timeline for myself and fellow board members for commitment to dates. Do you want dates tonight that we can make, or
Dr. Summers?
do we need it?
So we don't necessarily want to put you guys on the spot. However, in light of the fact that we've, okay.
Okay, well,
Can we go
down
back
the
to
line.
that slide? Can we?
Yes.
Because that would be awesome, because it would allow us to publish these dates
So I'll go down the
sooner rather than
line,
later.
and I will start. I could make September 28th and October 13th. Mr. Clausen, do you have some dates available?
Unfortunately, I'm not in front of my calendar right now. I will take a look at these dates and get back to you.
Okay, Ms. Upchurch?
I can do September 28th and October. Let me get back to it. October 28th as well.
25th?
That's or 25th.
Beautiful.
But that is our, okay. Maybe not. I have a Lewis Palmer Middle School band concert on that night. I can definitely do this upcoming one.
Mr. Schwartz?
I can do September 28th for sure. And then I should be able to do October 25th.
I can do October 25th also. It's before the band concert.
Great.
So that means tonight we at least have the 28th and October 25th covered, and then we'll follow up with Mr. Clausen and Mr. Taylor and see what else can be arranged.
I might be able to do the 11th as well.
Is the 11th better than the 13th? I heard Ms.
I'm
Phillips say the
yeah.
13th works better. Does the
I'm-
13th work potentially, Mr. Schwartz?
Not for me.
Okay.
I'm out of town.
And the 11th doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
So
I'm happy to volunteer Mr. Taylor for all the night.
I figured as much. So we can confirm the 28th and the 25th, and then we can look to see whether the 11th or 13th works best, depending on Mr. Clausen or Mr. Taylor's availability. And I think if we can confirm that, Mr. Clausen, if you don't mind, if we could get that from you as early as tomorrow, we can reach out to Mr. Taylor as well. That would enable us to confirm this and publish it as soon as possible.
I think the opportunity for it being on the 11th prior to a DAC meeting is we just had our first DAC meeting, and one of our discussion topics is how do we get more community members attending our DAC meetings and engaged. And I think when we did this last time before a DAC meeting, we saw a lot more community members stick around and participate in their DAC meetings. So there's a benefit to that.
Yeah, that certainly was a consideration, so thank you.
Have we considered doing these off one of our campuses, such as at Town Hall or a library or the YMCA or
Let's
a
explore that
church?
at our Board of Education work session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, I have another question though. I'm not done.
Shocker.
Oh. So moving forward, when we talk about one per month, can we schedule a work session to brainstorm some ideas? Like one that comes to mind is we just talked about character education. I think engaging our community more in that topic is an important topic, and we can find out what's working, what's not working, where are my concerns, what am I seeing with my own child in my own school, and as well as a better understanding too. That comes to mind. A portrait of a community comes to mind. I think of all kinds of ideas and examples.
Absolutely.
So can we schedule that for a work session?
That is our intent, is at the October 4th work session, we can work through what you just described very well, Ms. Upchurch. So, yep, absolutely.
All right.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Belcher.
Thank you all.
So we'll move on to agenda item C5, consider approve policy revisions. And I have that members of the executive leadership team will present policy revisions for us. And this is our second reading and possible subsequent approval by the Board of Education.
So, Ms. Phillips, if I may, we did not intend on making a presentation per se this evening. We just wanted to see if you had any questions about the policies that we did review at our last meeting. We're happy to respond to any questions if you have those, but otherwise we feel like we've already covered a lot of the detail of this.
Excellent. Thank you for the correction. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns with regard to either of the three policies? With that, I will make a motion to approve the following policy revisions as presented. AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity. GCQEB, transitional retirement incentive plan. And ICA, school year, school calendar, instruction time.
I'll second.
Any other comments? Ms. Wood?
I had one comment.
Oh,
This
go
is,
ahead.
sorry.
No,
This
you're fine.
Doesn't really have to do with this policy, but I really want to make sure that, I know I advocate for it, but I just going to take this opportunity to advocate again that we ensure that our teachers are being included in our calendar discussions.
Thank you for that reminder.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
So on to item C6, financial planning and analysis. Welcome back, Mr. Brett Ridgway.
Hello, Brett Ridgway, Chief Business Officer. I actually don't have any presentation in here in the agenda for this tonight. You see, you have your updates for district enrollment, and you have a financial report from Monument Academy. But as I mentioned earlier, the transition that we had in the human resources area and the payroll issues that we had took most of my focus here in these intervening days and weeks since we last met, and so therefore I have not been able to complete an updated report. It's also convenient, or I won't say convenient, or this time of year in September, there's not enough financial data in the new fiscal year to really do much of a report on either, and so I typically don't actually give a report in September because of that. So I usually wait until October for the first report of the new fiscal year.
Any questions or comments?
So I have a question. Student enrollment. When I'm looking at the data points, and it looks like every school across the entire district, except for the Homeschool Enrichment Academy, had a change from our 816 count. I also look at from our change from our 2021 count, and it looks like we only lost 69 students across the entire district. Am I reading that right?
That's 69 lower since the 816 count, yes,
Okay.
across the entire district, so
Okay.
including MA.
And then change from the 2021 October count, we actually increased 11 students across the district.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would just add that typically the change that we see from the very beginning of the school year is usually a function of we're not aware of students who, or families who may have moved or took their children elsewhere. So it just takes a little while for us to catch up to that information from the very first day of school. So that's typically what you see in those change of numbers. I would also add, as you're well aware from prior year trends, as we monitor change from the beginning of the school year, including our October 1 count, to the end of the school year, we typically have a trend of adding more students to our system that aren't necessarily part of that October 1 count. So just a dynamic that I think is a function of those times of the year and the fluctuation of students both in and out of our schools.
So, question on that. Now that you and your team have been here enough time to look at that trend, do we typically hold those students for the next count?
It's a really good question. I think at face value, yes. And there's definitely a unique dynamic for students who may be, for example, military. There may be other factors that are associated. So I think we could certainly deep dive that in a little more depth to study that type of thing. It's almost like a student retention type question, I think, is what you're posing.
Well, I'm really thinking about it from a revenue standpoint.
Oh, sure, there's that too. But because we operate on that single day count revenue, and at least to date, the state has not adjusted for that factor, it sort of is what it is, and why the October count window is so important. Anything else you'd add to that, Brett?
Well, that is a topic that's being discussed in the Legislative Interim Committee on School Finance about a second count date or some other count style, and that's something that I would advocate for because as we heard, this is something that we experience, and I think we experience that a lot in the Pikes Peak region in general. That as we are growing, that growth doesn't always happen by October.
As long as the students are here for the following count, it's really not a big deal. If it's a dynamic that continues, then essentially the parents in this community are paying to educate other kids. That's all. And if it's an insignificant number, let's not worry about it.
Sure.
If it's a number that bears significance, it warrants attention. That's all.
So that's a nuance. That's a good question and a good point, though, and that's a nuance that I'd like to add to the analysis as we do the final October count review.
Thank you.
When I'm looking at Bear Creek, for example, and Bear Creek has grown. Most of our loss in students from last year came from a large graduating class of Palmer Ridge High School.
That's correct.
When I look at these numbers, and when I look at them, I'm seeing onesies, twosies in different grades throughout the different schools. When you go back, and I took the time to go back and look at all of our board docs and look at all of our student counts per grade per school, and I'm just seeing onesies, twosies. So I just am curious if I'm seeing it wrong.
That bears out over the past few years. As we look at growth projections, as we look at new developments, as we look at potentially those developments bringing in a significant number of students, that needs to be factored into this analysis as well. That's kind of a separate, it's a related focus, but it's something that we, as I mentioned earlier, need to be looking at in terms of our longer term projections and how those bear out at each campus and the facility's ability to accommodate students within our programming capacity, which also needs to be revisited because it's been some years since we've been able to review and update that accordingly. So what I appreciate is that we're looking at this as a very dynamic document because it is, and there's a lot of real worthwhile conversation to go into it as we go forward.
I have one question for you that I bet you can answer. We have our October count coming up. When do we get our numbers? I can never remember. When do we get our numbers for our students that are choicing in and out of districts?
Well, that's part of the October count process, And so when we submit that file, then that's an analysis I do when I look at the entire data set, and I'm able to identify. Because I think that's a good point, because we do have a skew in terms of our choice enrollment definitely tends towards the high school grades versus the elementary grades. And so that would give us some of that information when we are able to analyze that.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Let's see, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
And we have now arrived at agenda item E, board self-reflection and future agenda planning. This is a new addition to the board agenda as of the last month and a half. And I will start with Mr. Schwartz.
No reflection, thank you.
Ms. Upchurch?
I just have one reflection. Actually, I have two reflections. I'm sorry, always. So I wanted to call some attention to, with the advocacy that we talked about with CASB, and when I'm talking to our potentially newly elected representative in our school district in Tri-Lakes area, Proposition 122 is going to be on the ballot, and that's access to psychedelic substances, basically magic mushrooms. And I'm not saying we have to take a position, but I think there is something that we have to think about. Would students be exposed to hallucinogens that are currently prohibited or illegal? Right now, it's a DEA, it's a Scheduled I drug. And kids could experience panic reactions and psychotic-like episodes or hallucinations or an ability to discern fantasy from reality or nausea, vomiting. So I'm curious how we as a district, moving forward, I know we've got enough on our plate right now, but this might be something we want to, as a board, talk about in a work session or consider. So I just wanted to bring that to light. That is something that we as a school district, when our students' safety and security is paramount, what does that mean for us? And then my other reflection is based on some of our community comments. I really appreciate all the comments. I appreciate the comments speaking on behalf of so many of our educators and the importance of that relationship and character education, and comments on how do I make sure that I'm still the parent and taking care of my kids, and that my oversight in my children is first. And I think those are really important to, as a board, that we reflect and listen to. And I also applauded and appreciated the parents that came about to talk to us about music education. And what's important to me about that is we have a very thriving and robust music education here in D38, as seen by so many accolades that our students achieve. And I actually celebrate that we're starting to open doors where we have students that are able to pursue that music education in the classroom, but also extracurricular. Lewis Palmer Middle School last year opened up a jazz club. That allowed my own student, who's a musician, to explore something, a new instrument he wouldn't have otherwise explored, and he found that he fell in love with the bass guitar. And that didn't interfere with his ability to explore other subjects in school while also exploring an interest. In the high school, if you have a high school junior or senior who has invested time and money and energy and talent, and it has a strong love for music education, and then they find themselves having to take classes at Pikes Peak Community College in the morning, I would hate to see that student have to choose between pursuing their college education versus music. So we have extracurricular. I would assume that student can also still be in the pep band and continue to be a pep band member while still pursuing their college classes, and not interfere with take away that love for music education. So I fully support our music education, both in the classroom as well as extracurricular outside the classroom. That's my reflection.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen?
I believe Ms. Upchurch covered enough for both of us, so I will not share anything further.
Thank you. I don't have any further reflections this evening either, although I would perhaps like to end congratulating you again, Ms. Upchurch,
Thank
and
you.
also to let you know that you never need to be sorry for a comment or a question. So with that, I do believe we are adjourned.